welcome to the RTO show. I'm your host, Pete Shao. Today, got an amazing guest for you. But as always, we want to cover some homework with you first. Make sure that you subscribe to the newsletter. This is probably the best source of information outside of what APRO is giving right now. And this is stuff that we don't cover on the podcast. It's going to be new to you, but it's really important to the RTO industry. So make sure you check that out by going to www.thertoshowpodcast.com. Go onto the website. You can listen to us. You can buy some swag, and you can subscribe to the newsletter. And getting to the man of the hour, Mr. Jerry Marshall, somebody I've wanted to have on the show for a while. I am very appreciative that I finally was able to lock you down, especially what I've just heard. You got a lot going on, so we'll talk about that a little bit. But Jerry, very busy. This guy is super busy in the RTO world. Not only is he running Kappa Investments, which is, and I'll let you get into it, but is a situation with buddies. He's also on the board of APRO. He's also got a very large family that he takes care of. He plays ball all the time. We're going to talk about book reviews so you get just a little bit of backstory. So we're in DC at the LegCon in 2026, and we're riding around with a bunch of guys. It was Chad Fosdick, it was Jerry, it was me, and it was Vince Ficarota. Right. And we're all riding around trying to get to this, to a great restaurant, which I thought was a good restaurant anyways. Philomena's in DC. If you guys haven't been there, you should go. We're riding around and we get into this conversation about RTO, about learning. And, you got to understand, when you're with a bunch of guys who love what they do, it is a situation. And Jerry's just getting passionate. And we're talking about hiring. We're talking about firing. We're talking about getting things going. And you could just see the passion coming out of Jerry. I said, Jerry, we got to talk about that. We've got to talk about that. So in the mix of like 15 books that we were talking about and everything that we were doing and where we were going, we're like halfway down DC. I don't even know where we were at that point. But, Jerry, I appreciate you being on the show. Listen, you got a lot going on today, but so far, how's everything going?
That's good, man. Thank you. I'm like honored to have you to be on the show with you. I've seen all the other guys and girls that have been on the show, so I feel like I don't belong with some of those guys that you've had on the show, but I'm honored that you feel intrigued enough to have me join you.
Well, I tell you what, Jerry, you have a very unique story. Let me just dispel that right now. You definitely belong here because you have a lot to teach a lot of people and a lot of the way you're thinking. But just want to go back just a little bit. 24 years in the RTO industry, is that right?
Actually, a little longer in the tooth. I just joined 27-year club. 1999. Yeah, wow. May of 99. Yes, sir.
He's growing. You see that? We put him on here. He's already got 3 more extra years of experience. That's what happens when you join the show. But so you come on the show, and I got to know, before all this, because your passion comes out in a lot of things. It was not the first conversation we've had, and it's definitely, hopefully not the last, but I can always tell that you're very passionate about what you do and how you react to certain things, whether it be new hires, maintaining business, growing new accounts, or growing new stores. What got you in the RTO industry to begin with?
So, I guess I was in between jobs, back in 1999, started a little painting business to bide my time, and, I had my resume online. I forget the platform it was on at that point in time, but, had a RTO guy with Rentway, of all names, give me a call and said, hey, we got this MIT position and wanted to know if, I'd be interested. So I came by, met with the guy. He kind of sold me on the dream. I was looking for an opportunity. I always felt like I was a hard worker, quick learner, just really never got, the opportunity what I was looking for, with an opportunity to grow and just an opportunity to get a start. And, I answered the ad and finished up my last couple painting jobs and was working part-time in the business before I finished up those painting jobs and came on full-time and, kind of went from there. That was 1999 and here we are 2026 and still plugging away at it.
Jerry, if I pull up an old MySpace, you're not going to have a resume on your old MySpace, am I? I just want to know. I just want to make sure that if
it's
that
probably
happens,
there. It's probably there.
Yeah, I had one. I don't even know what happened to it. I couldn't even find a way to get into it.
Yeah.
So you go from painting, you get into the RTO business. Now here's the thing. You're running 7 locations. You have, I guess, under Kappa Investments, you have 7 locations. That's a big jump from coming in to where you are now. Now, kudos to that, because I can tell you right now, being an entrepreneur and investing in yourself is huge, but it's also not easy. So as you come into this, what led you to decide to, because you're starting with Rentway, what led you down that road with Buddy's Home Furnishings versus Rentway? And was it because they had that franchise opportunity? I mean, what got you there?
So my story is kind of long and twisted. I worked for Rentway. We got bought by Rent-A-Center. I was a regional manager. At that point, I'd grown with Rentway. Again, like I said, I kind of pursued the dream, and the dream followed me along. And I became a regional manager with Rentway. Then all of a sudden, get my bubble burst. Rent-A-Center buys us, and that didn't feel like it was a good opportunity for me. So Michael Bennett, everybody knows Michael. Michael had been on me for a while. He was with Aaron's, and he was working with a huge franchisee at the point in time, and he's like, "Hey man, I got an opportunity right here in your market. You don't have to move. I know about you." So it was perfect timing. He caught me at my weakest moment, I guess, because I really loved Rentway. Enjoyed my time there, learned a lot, grew a lot, made a lot of money, which is what I enjoyed the most at that point in time. And, so when Michael invited me over to come work with him at Aaron's, and did that for a couple of years, and here we go full circle again, and worked for a franchisee there, and the franchisee sells out. So I worked for corporate for 2 months. Corporate sells me to another franchisee. I was like, man, I feel like a show pony or something, just getting traded and sold all over the place. And so I kind of got out of the business for, about 9 months, Pete, after, bought and sold a couple times. And during that time, I just got antsy, missed the business because I enjoyed it. I loved it. I finally found something that I loved as much as I love sports. So I was doing that for a while. I mean, just sitting at home wondering what I'm going to do. And I answered an ad actually with Easy Home, who was franchising out of Canada, wanted to grow their business in the United States. And they had this little competition. I don't like calling competition because I like to feel like I earned it. I didn't just win it. But anyway, I got the opportunity where they came in, gave me an opportunity to go in business for myself, become an entrepreneur. They provided some financing. We came in and we blew it out the water. Me and my team at the point in time. Two of those guys are still with me today. Since 2010 is when I went in business for myself. So we're 16 years now. We blew it out the water. Easy Home had a requirement. You had to pay that loan off. They gave you all that money, and that 2 years comes fast. So we had to get them paid off. So that was my motivation, initially on the first store. So we got them paid off in 2 years, and they was like, "Hey man, you did so great. We're willing to go in bed with you for a second store." So they financed me for a second store. So I got store number 2 off the ground in 2013, and then 2016, here comes, my old Aaron's buddies, Michael Bennett included, and said, "Hey, we'd love to have you over here at Buddies. And if we, could come up with a way to get you out of that Easy Home system and get you a part of the Buddies system, would you be interested?" I was like, "Yeah, why not?" It was an opportunity. They had 4 stores. I had 2 stores, and 2 of the markets we shared. And so it was an opportunity again for me to grow some more and grow a little easier, to go from 2 stores to 4 stores. So I took advantage of the opportunity, and we negotiated our way out of the Easy Home system, and I became a part of the Buddy system in 2016. And, so I'm getting ready to come up in August. It'll be 10 years, inside the Buddy system, where we've gone from, I came over with 2, if it instantly went to 4, and then we added 2 more, and then added another. So that's how we got up to 7 in the last 10 years.
Wow. That's a story. See, he's saying I got nothing to say. Dude, that is a story. Now, after being, traded like a deck of sports cars, we were talking about sports, and you make it from one spot to the other. Here you are as an owner. That to me speaks volumes. Not only that, Easy Home wasn't a small situation. Easy Home actually has about 140 locations, and I know in Canada right now. We actually opened up an R&R Tire Express across the street from an Easy Home, and we paid them a visit because hey, these guys are the guys to beat up here. So let's talk to them and see what's going on. Probably do a little bit of cross marketing. And it was one of those things like this, for what we have in the States, they're a major player in Canada, and they have it really locked down. They're pretty big, and they have different sections. I know they have like easy finance and all this stuff. And it was like, wow, like I really just didn't know. So I loved being in Canada. I'm going to say it's a little warmer down here in the South, but I enjoyed being in Canada. It was really nice. So after you start doing this, you go from 4 to 9 stores. You've got a little bit of kind of like breathing room, but now here comes all the problems. I wouldn't say problems, but all the breathing room that you have also comes with, now you're hiring for 7 stores. Now you're overseeing 7 stores. Now you're worried about the P&L bottom line for 7 stores. Now you're ordering for 7 stores. You got, how many ever trucks? I would say 14, but maybe a little bit more. Like, as you're doing that, how was the transition from going from being a multi-unit for somebody else to being a multi-unit for yourself? And what were some of the things that you've learned as an entrepreneur over a multi-unit versus a multi-unit for somebody else?
Yeah. So I would say that the biggest thing is the cash flow piece, right? Understanding that, a lot of people in the business are like, oh yeah, we make this much money. When you come from the corporate world, you understand a P&L, but when you're truly looking at, how much cash is really left at the end of each month, and sometimes at the end of each week, but at the end of each month, that I would say that was my biggest learning, just understanding that, realizing that, hey, the more you grow, the more cash, every store is not gonna be super ultra successful. So you're going to have some drains on the cash at times, particularly when you go to open up a new one. I mean, what it costs to open up a new store and, the cash drag there, particularly when you're trying to do it from your own bank account and you're not actually playing with the bank's money, on that deal. So we went through that phase and I learned real quick that, hey, sometimes it's better to play with the bank's money and keep yours because cash is king. But I'm just a guy that just not a big fan of debt. So that just learning that phase of it, Pete, I would say was probably my biggest learning along the way is just managing that cash piece. And inventory, there's a growth phase. So you go through those ebbs and flows, kind of like a roller coaster, it's like, yeah, you can grow like gangbusters. The more you're growing, the more inventory you're having to buy. And then you got to wait for that cash to catch up, to get the return on that investment. So, it's a real learning curve and learning cycle. A lot of sleepless nights trying to figure that piece out.
God, I can only imagine. One of the things that I always had is you always have these employees who are like, we have so many customers, we're bringing this in, we're making money. You're like, whoa, slow down. The difference between what the cash looks like and what the cash is, there is a big gap. Yeah, you might be collecting it, but how much should it take to grow this place? How much should it take to build out? How much should it take to get these 2 trucks that, I mean, it used to be you get a truck for 40 grand. Now it's like 60, 70 grand. And it's just, everything is just shot up. It's just crazy numbers. And then absolutely going from one point to the next. And now, hey, an investment here might not pay off for 6 months, might not pay for 8 months. And then if it gets slower, it might not pay off for 12 months. And you really got to go through that. And it's an education piece for a lot of employees that they think, oh, I'm looking in this product that's only made, that's made this much. We could just get rid of it. No. Hold on. You don't even know how much it costs to get that, let alone put it out there. How many times has it been back? How much time has it been, there's so much of a learning curve. And I would imagine that going from being outside the business to inside the business to becoming an owner in the business and doing your multi-unit. Because I know we've talked about it before. You've gone back and forth on having somebody be a regional for you or district, however you guys call it, and then not going back and forth based on how they perform or how they don't perform or how it affects the business. Is that where the passion came from? Just getting your hands into it and getting deep, like neck deep into it and going, you know what? I'm going to make this work. Is that where the Jerry Marshall passion comes from?
I would say, the passion for me, Pete, it probably started early in this business. I mean, I can go back to probably 1999 to 2000 when I first got in it. I was a very shy guy. I'm still shy in ways, right? More passionate in smaller groups. But I would say, it's one of the things I tell people all the time, especially my personal friends. I'm like, the business has been really good to me, but, on the selfish side, I've been really good for the business too. So the passion comes from, because when you love doing what you do, like I genuinely like all people and probably more considerate of less fortunate people than I am of people that are, more fortunate, I guess, just to contradict that. But, that's where my passion is, just seeing people happy, smile, the relationships you build in this business, not, inside the 4 walls, not just with your teams, but with your customers. I even like to stress that, hey, I don't even like calling them customers. I like calling them clients, right? Because client means we have a relationship.
Let me ask you something. Are you getting everything out of your rent-to-own business? If you're not an APRO member, then the answer is probably no. Look, Advocacy is APRO's bread and butter. This is why they were created and what they do best. But here's the thing. APRO membership is about way more than advocacy. APRO connects you to the movers and the shakers of the industry, people who've been there, done that, and they can help you do it even better. APRO's monthly webinars give you expert insights and actionable takeaways. It's like having a masterclass for your business every single month. Got questions about complex regulations or sticky situations? No problem. APRO's legal hotline gives you direct access to experts who have got the answers. That's a peace of mind that you can't put a price on. And let's not forget the resources, news, updates, and tools that keep you ahead of the curve. Scholarships for your team? Check. Disaster relief when you need it most? Double check. APRO is your ultimate support system in the rent-to-own world. So stop settling for less. With APRO, members get more. More support, more connections, more success. Head over to rtohq.org and join the APRO family today. Because in this business, more isn't just better. It's essential. See you at the top with APRO.
A customer means that we're in and out. So I would say I've had that passion ever since this business has been it's changed my life, changed my family's life, changed the outcome of Jerry Marshall. I just like to, reciprocate that back and just make sure that I share as much as I can. And hopefully I can light somebody's fire, like my regional manager that hired me in 1999. He sold me a dream, and everything he said came true with, off of hard work and willing to learn and be coachable.
I mean, absolutely. So when you talk about this passion, how important is it to bring people aboard Kappa Investments, Buddy's Home Furnishings that work for you? How important is that piece as you exude it, as it's something that you do, like you said, it's been good for me, but I've been good for it. I put in some hard times. How important is it to bring somebody aboard and go, you know what, regardless of the situation, you've got to be passionate? Is that something that comes out during the hiring process and the maintenance process between the hire date and hopefully the never release date, but if there's a release date, where does it play in that?
So I usually try to start it out. My interviews are very informal. I'm very introductory with how my interviews go. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to be very informal. Just want to, get to know the person. So as a part of that process I know that you learn early in the stages, you got to do more listening than you do talking, but I do like to share, some of the stories that not only that belongs with myself, but some other team members that I've come across over the years. And hopefully I can, share that passion with someone else so they can understand, number one, what I'm looking for, what we're looking for, but also if there's an opportunity, if you've got it in you, let us help bring it out of you. And who knows, you can make this into a career for yourself as well.
I totally agree. Talking about certain things, talking about, the passion you mentioned just a second ago about family and them being, is the family ever going to be involved in what you're doing? As I know you've got, is it 5 children that you have?
Four kids, three grandkids now. So, right now, Pete, it's, my son's kind of in and out. I think he's on the fence, whether it's something he wants to be involved with. So I don't know where that's going to land. I don't know where it's going to go as far as that goes. One side of me says, hey, I would love for that, legacy to carry on. But then there's another side of me, knowing the grind, knowing the challenges, I think it's a blessing for them to go off and find their own careers. And, if they wind up coming back, they come back. My oldest daughter's a nurse. That's her field. She's passionate about people, and nursing's perfect for her. And, my other daughter, she wants to be a TV star, so I don't think rent-to-own's going to work for her on that.
So let me ask you a question. I would imagine you take what you do very seriously, and that is not just a passion project, but passion is a part of it. How big is the passion for what you do put out in the family household? How important is it for, as you're telling the kids to hey, listen, if you follow my footsteps, great. If not, it's okay. Do you also say, whatever you do, be passionate and strengthful about it to make sure that you give everything that you have to making it work?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a foundation of who I am. If you're not going to find something that you care about, be passionate about it and put in whatever work's required. And more importantly, be coachable, right? With everything that you do. No one knows it all. So part of, being coachable is a learning experience and being able to learn along the way. So that's important to me. Just be passionate about whatever you do. Even when we play sports, they know, everybody says that I'm too passionate about everything because I'm so competitive, but that's just who I am, and it's kind of what I try to inspire in others.
But you gotta understand, part of our conversation as we're in DC, him and Chad are talking about going back and forth and having the stats and writing the stats in the game. Listen, I can barely follow the game. They're following the game and writing the errors and the runs, and I can't even keep up with my accounting on the P&L form. So, everything he does I'm telling you, that's why he's here. It's a passionate day to day. So, kind of going over that, I see that you do a lot of things, and when you put yourself to it, you really care about it. There is something that innately just says, hey, if I'm gonna put my attention to this, it's gonna be my full attention. And I think that resonates in what you do. And I think that's why you draw a crowd. And you say that you're kind of, to yourself, listen, being humble is also an attraction point. Some people love it when, somebody's out there going, oh, I have this much money and I can do all this. Oh God, just save it. But sometimes you're just looking for that person in the room that's the real person. I love the fact that you got your chain. I see that you have your cross on. I'm sure that, you believe in that as much as you can. I know that family is big for you. And I know that not that long ago, it was probably maybe a couple years ago that you graced us on the cover of APRO magazine, the RTO HQ magazine. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's one of my biggest honors being in this business. I'm very proud of that.
So listen, they saw it good enough to say Jerry was in the front cover. Listen, I've got on there, but I had never made front cover. I'm just saying. So I love that. I love that about it. As you're going on, what advice would you give, coming from your perspective, where you've been, how you treat your business now, what you know now? What advice would you give to the RTO community now in today's era? Because you're talking about coming in at 99. That's a very different RTO than was 2005, that was 2015, was right before, COVID in 2020. What would you say? You've been through all that. What would you say now, advice to the RTO community?
So, and what I'm going to say, it does go back to the 99. It's just, you got to get there differently, but it's just people, right? Just love on your people and appreciate. I always, tell my guys, if someone's able to be coached, they're willing to work, then we can get them everywhere else we need them to get. So I would say, love the one you're with before you go chasing the one that you don't have sometimes, right? Just to make sure. So I kind of use that motto that to make sure that we've invested everything we can in the people that you have before you go searching for someone else. So that's my number one thing is still love on your people. I know, you have conversations all the time with people. It's like, oh, nobody wants to work and, all of this coming out of COVID. Yes, the work ethic has changed, but in another aspect, it's still there. You just got to find different ways to pull it out of people. So it's just not so easy that they just have it and they just show up and they do what's necessary to be successful. You've got to use tact and just find different ways to pull out the powers of people, so to speak. So I guess that's one of my biggest things that, I've had to learn over the last couple of years, Pete, as we've, came out of COVID, struggled with staffing. And now that, there's talented people that you're finding more and more that are available. And just investing in the people. I think that's still the number one thing out there is just investing in the people so that they can invest back. And then it's just kind of like you buy that washer and dryer set, you make the investment up front, you reap the benefits, day after day, week after week, month after month, and year after year, as you flow down the road. So that would be my biggest thing is just learning that, understanding that, realizing that's still a thing. Just because staffing has gotten tougher and it's gotten different, don't lose hope in providing the passion and investing in people.
They say, I was looking at a couple of reports not that long ago, and they said that Gen Z it's dual-sided. They actually work sometimes a little bit harder, but they only work harder on the things that they believe in. So remedial jobs like, let's say, McDonald's or fast food. I don't want to call anybody out, but, fast food and large big box Walmarts, whatever. that remedial task, they just don't believe in it. They don't show any passion on it. But if you give them something that they believe in, they're actually shown to work harder than the previous generation because they have an emotional attachment to what they're doing and believe that it's creating a difference. And that difference makes a huge difference in how they perform. So don't know how that works in rent to own. We'd love to get you to get passionate as we are. I got a question for you though. I'd love to go off script a little bit. Like when you say investing, tell me about it. I want to know, what does an investment from Jerry Marshall seem like? Somebody who's very passionate, who has shown that they can do the business, has shown that they can not only grow it, but be a part of ownership in the business. What does investing in somebody look like in your mind?
So mostly with me, again, like I just stated, I had to relearn that myself because it kind of went through, you talk to people, you try to coach them up, try to inspire them, and then you kind of leave them alone, right? Because I don't want to be a micromanager and overmanage. So the thing that I've had to relearn is just take a step back and, spend time holding their hand, right? When I say invest, I mean like, let me be here with you. You clean that bathroom. I'm going to clean this bathroom. You file the paperwork. I'm going to take the trash out. So for me, investing in them is actually getting back into, one of the old sayings is back where the rubber meets the road. If I'm going to be in operations, then I need to be in operations. And it's not that I ever got it, but it's one of the jokes that me and some of my friends have is like so many guys fail because they get owneritis, right? They forget what got them there. And, I wouldn't say that I forgot, but I kind of took it for granted for a while, and I'm not afraid to say that. Just take it for granted that people would just automatically respond to what you tell them that you did, right? Versus actually seeing it in action. And that's just how I manage. That's kind of how it's not for everybody, but that's just my management style. And that's what's made me successful for most of my career. And, every time I look back and look at failures, it's when I just skip that step of, really investing in people by being there with them where the rubber meets the road.
You know what's funny? There's a friend of the show. His name is Jason Winters. You might know him. He does a great job. He works for RAC and Impact RTO Holdings, and we talk operations when he's on the show, which he's actually slated to be on the show pretty soon, because I don't ever want to get too far from it, right? And he has this statement. He has this saying. It's a Jason Winters special. He's like, the farther that you get from the counter, the more full of BS you are, because you almost forget going back, because it does, it changes, and we've talked about several different points of change, whether it was the .com bubble, whether it was having the problems in 2000, 2008, 2007, 2008, when things were going crazy, and then things ramped up really good, 15 and 16, you go into 19, you have no idea, boom, COVID hits, and the next 2 years, we think are going to be terrible. Then we open, all of a sudden money's flowing everywhere, and now we're paying for all that money. It goes ups and down. It's cyclical. It's crazy, but I did notice that the longer somebody stays away from the front counter, it's like that fish story, right? You caught it was this big, but 10 years later, it's this big. It was a fight. I had to fight. I had to get in there. But when you get away from the counter like that, you almost forget that the ideas change, the generations change. What you're selling changes, the type of cell phones that you're changing, the type of, it used to be I remember when I first started, like a washing machine, you could almost throw a grenade in there and nothing would ever happen to it, right? That's just the way they were made. Now they have all kinds of bells and whistles. And if something happens, you get an error code. You got to have somebody special to come look at it. If there's a weird knock in it, forget it. It's just so much more different than it used to be. And what I've noticed too, that plays a big difference. And besides the passion, the fact that everything's cyclical, goes up, goes down, is the way we invest in our leadership team. Do you have any ideas, any good quotes, any good ideas that you can tell us? This is how you invest in your leadership team, and this is what you've gotten out of it over the years.
I kind of, Pete, I live by the same quote. I've had it since Rentway. I'll just, I'll read excellence, right? It's a result of caring more than others think is wise. So, a lot of people's like, oh, you're crazy for this. You're crazy for that. I don't answer to anybody but God. And my wife, but, I show up to work every day. I think showing that and living that and for others to see that, that's kind of like my life thing is just, carrying excellence, trying to be excellent with everything that I do. That's my competitive spirit. And as a part of that, the end result is that most people think that I care more than what's reasonable and what's possible. That's just, if you don't show it, then there's not going to be enough there for anybody to follow. Right. So that's just kind of my life thing. Is just that, kind of back to that, just caring and, um, pursuing excellence. It's never going to be obtained. But the pursuit of it is very, very rewarding. And, that goes back to my favorite movie, The Pursuit of Happiness.
Oh, okay. Well, now we know we know at least one of those. So your wife has been with you this whole time. You're talking about picked a partner. That was something that came up early and it came up again. It was somebody that, you can go home and kind of hang your hat up and talk to and say, hey, this is what happened today. This is what's going on. And they stay with you through the thick and thins. Talking about the thick and thins of it, now that you're here, you take on a little bit more, right? First off, let's talk about the elephant in the room. You said that you were here because something happened in one of your stores and you had to step in and handle that. So before we get into the rest, this is also part of owning your own business, right? Do you think that you answer to nobody? No, let me rephrase it. You answer to everybody. So you had to step in, you had to get some stuff done. What is it like being behind the counter again, after everything that you've done? What is it like stepping in and just getting your hands dirty again?
It's probably why I'm happy today, even though it's been frustrating, challenging the last 2 weeks, right? Whenever you're trying to clean up a few things, it's always challenging, frustrating, whether it's service calls didn't happen, dirty store, just different things, little things like that. But it's also very rewarding. Like right before I came to meet with you, I just finished cleaning 2 bathrooms, at the store. So, I wanted the staff to see that first, from me. And then, understand that, hey, if I'm willing to do it, then everybody needs to be willing to do it. But it's fun, Pete. I always say, man, I challenge my managers all the time. It's like, we meet every Monday at 2:00 and probably at least twice a month, I challenge them like, hey, I'd kick your butt. I wish I had the patience, not the patience, but I wish I had the time to run a store again because I think it would be a very fun ride. But I also challenge them that they're not better than me. And that's just the fun side. I mean, I don't really, well, it's true. They're not as good as I am, but
well, he says this, but he does love sports. He's going to challenge you too. And if you guys don't know, Jerry has a great outlook. But Jerry's actually older than I am. He doesn't look it. You look amazing for your age. Do you want to tell everybody how old you are?
I'm 52. Yeah, 52 and a half.
52, right?
I'm looking at it, man.
Even my producer Anthony's like, nah, that ain't happening. It's true. So on top of all this, which is something that I wanted to get into as well, you don't just run 7 stores. You had other companies. You're part of some stuff. I mean, you basically had something going on with deliveries as far as Amazon goes. That was your own company. You have something else going on with properties. So those are a couple of other things that you have going on. On top of what you told me is you play basketball all the time. You go to the kids' games, right? You're writing down this stuff. You're paying attention to what's going on with the children as well. You're a full-time dad. What is it like to have that going on as you're trying to maintain 7 stores and being in the store yourself?
It's fun, Pete. I use those other things because I am, everybody, talks about it. Actually, I get tired of it now because I'm always considered a workaholic. I just had to debate with my sister-in-law Monday about that. I was like, I don't work as hard as I used to be or as much as I used to. I say that as I've been working a lot lately, but, those things, I'll call them work distractions. So it kind of helps free my mind, ease my mind. The basketball thing, it's fun. I get my competition still, on the court and playing with 22, 23, 30-year-olds, and running up and down the court with those guys. So, and then it's just relationships, right? I love relationships. I love building relationships. So all of those things just provide different distractions, different level of satisfaction / distraction throughout my day, throughout my life that kind of helps me enjoy the life that I have and that I live. And the other things, I'm on the board with the Boys and Girls Club. So I enjoy that, spending time trying to, help underprivileged kids there in that aspect. Um, so it's just different things. My wife thinks I'm crazy because, I'm always talking about doing something else. And she's like, you don't have enough time now. I was like, well, I just need something else to help me find more time. Um, but it's just enjoyable, man. It's just an enjoyable ride. I think it helps keep me going, helps keep me young, and I just feel good about, being involved with other people and helping other people in different aspects. Like I coach my daughter's fast pitch travel softball team, which, Chad and I didn't realize he was a softball guy. And, that he and I really hit it off there in DC over that conversation / subject. And, I love just helping other people's and that's just I guess is my life passion. And that's why I've really enjoyed this business because I see the value in what we do and I see our customers reaping the benefits of what we do, more so than anything else.
Well, there was it's a perspective. I always say it's a perspective. You might say that I'm a workaholic. I say that I'm filling my day with productive things. It's a different thing. Stephen Covey says that it's the paradigm. It's how you look at it. It's how it's viewed through what lens. Again, if you wanted to relax and enjoy your life in a different, capacity than I do, then yeah, you might see it as work. And I don't think I have as much going on as you do, but I definitely understand filling my day with things that, from 1 hour to the next. I have somebody that I care about. He's helped me out through a lot of things, Steven Stow, and we were talking one time and he was just like, listen, Pete, you're going to run yourself ragged on both ends. And if you really want to do this, there's something that you're going to have to do. And I'm like, Steve, you got the magic bullet. If you have that thing, you need to let me know what recipe your book or you're cooking out of because I need to know it. And he was like, the only thing I can tell you is you need to be relentless with your calendar. You have to know when you can do it, when you can't. And when that time is up, you're going to have to switch gears. I mean, if you set this time, you have to know I'm going to complete it in this time. I'm going to do it in this time. And then when it's time to move on, you're going to have to move on and you're going to have to be relentless with that on what goes on and also what comes off, right? Because if you put it on there, it must mean something to you. So you need to always value that and make sure that you take care of that. So I definitely understand. My wife says all the time, what are you doing? And I'm like, listen, if my day isn't like on fire 5 times a day, it's just not a normal day. It's just not
That's
good
right.
enough, right?
You're
It's
not
just
doing it right.
right. It's just
It's
like
not fulfilling.
what are you doing? You don't have enough emergencies going. God, get out of here. And I gotta say that I appreciate that. I appreciate that view and I understand that passion. So as you're going through, you have all these other businesses. Now, very recently, you got away from the Amazon driving business. Now, I will say, if you guys don't understand this, rent-to-own owners are very entrepreneurial. They expand a lot of different ways. We literally had Mark Conley on here, and he had more businesses than I've got fingers and toes. What drives you as you're doing all this? What drives you to, you're passionate about your business, you're passionate about your family. What drives you to opening another business and really trying that out and saying, hey, this is going to work or that's going to work or whatever the case is? What drives you to try and expand?
So, I mean, I guess part of it's just dreaming, you just dream for more. I've always I'm never satisfied, right? Just I want more and not so much for me. You mentioned it earlier, just to cover that again, my family is my passion, my kids, my grandkids, that's what I worry about every day. And so I just want to do as much as I can to provide as much as possible, for them. And mainly opportunities, right? It's just everybody, it's not so much of money, right? Sometimes it's just opportunities. Sometimes you need money to have those opportunities, but that's what it's more like for me. And then it's another thing is just trying to help other people. That Amazon business, I loved it. I did it for 5 years. I survived it for 5 years. The first 3 years were a heck of a fun ride. It kind of reminded me a lot of RTO. It's just something different. You're dealing with a lot of people. I had up to 140 drivers at one time on the street 7 days a week. And, that was fun. It was exciting, but, I did lose the passion behind that. Because I felt like I was never going to get over that uphill battle trying to help that many people. You're trying to help the drivers achieve and strive and get better. And that was what I was doing. And along the way, hey, just go deliver these packages, but learn some life lessons. And that became a tough challenge for me. And I feel like I was losing the battle and I'd lost my passion for it. So I'm not going to do something that I'm not passionate about. If I don't love it, eventually it's going to show itself, right? And then the other thing, I miss RTO. So, at that point in time, when I was doing the Amazon thing, I was spending a lot of time on that side and a little bit less time on this side. And I miss my people. These guys are really my family, here. So I missed them. Um, but that's just kind of like what drives me and like what motivates me is when I'm looking at other things, I'm looking for opportunities for other people, not, for my family and also other people.
I'm curious, with as much passion as I say, I never really thought about the other side of it. And when it, kind of lays out, it gets distilled in your book. You're very passionate about what you do and you like and you drive, you get driven into what you have in front of you. What are passion killers and what can people in RTO go, that I probably should stay away from that because that's one on Jerry's list of passion killers. What stops that kind of, or interferes with that feeling? And then, you decide, what, now I am at a point where it's time for me to back away.
I'm big on, lazy behaviors, I guess, it is my thing. So little things bother me more than big things. Of course, I don't want anybody to go wreck my truck, but if somebody wrecks a truck, I would like to think they didn't do it intentionally. It's an accident, right? As we always say, stuff happens. We say it the other way, but stuff happens.
Right.
But when you leave trash in the truck, you leave trash on the floor, you didn't vacuum, you didn't empty trash cans. Little things like that bother me. You didn't close a lease agreement properly because, we decided that, my cell phone, my TikTok account, my Facebook account was more important than spending an extra 3-4 minutes with the customer. We didn't file that paperwork away last night because, we wanted to start closing the store at 5:55 instead of waiting until 6:05. So just little things like that, Pete, are probably the motivation killers for me, because it just provides frustration. That's a can do, will do, won't do mindset and mentality. And, I don't have a lot of patience for that because I'm the guy that, picks up every piece of trash. I park as far away as I can from the front door, of every store that I go to, and I make the walk and I pick up every piece of trash that I can find along the way. So I just don't have a lot of patience for, I guess just lazy behaviors. That's probably the biggest buzz kill for me.
I tell you what, it is a killer, right? When you're working your hardest and you see somebody over there in the corner, you're like, hey, you need to come help, man. What are you doing over there? You know what I mean? It's like, come on. Talking about that and stuff. Now you're also on the board. You're on the APRO board. So Jared was like, I've got 6 whole minutes. I'm going to be on the APRO board. So with everything that's going on, how did you end up on the APRO board? They see the passion too, and they're like, you know what? We got to have a passionate guy on the board. We got to have at least one of them, right? And we just put them on the board. So how did that work out? And what is being on the board like? What has it afforded you to see or learn or to be a part of?
Yeah, I never thought about being on the APRO board. I never thought I was worthy. Sometimes I still feel that way, but 2 words got me on there, got me to go for it, and that was Michael Bennett. Yeah, so that's
a reoccurring theme. You hear that? It's a reoccurring thing. I have to call Mike and be like, I appreciate what you've done for Jerry.
Yeah, he can sell ice to an Eskimo for sure. So he convinced me. He's like, hey, there was a need, and felt like that I would be a good fit with my personality. So that kind of, just kind of looked at it. It's like, all right, let me think about it. Thought about it for about a week or 2, and I was like, okay, I'll make a run for it. Ran for it, got voted in. I would say the biggest thing that I feel selfish saying this, but I've gotten out of is being exposed to, the people that are on the board, the different personalities, the different backgrounds. There's lawyers, guys from a legal perspective. There's business owners, there's business operators. There's just different people with different levels, and that exposure, I feel like, they may not feel like it, but they've made a major impact on me over the last couple of years, just to look at things differently. Cause I'm a very slow thinker, very passionate. That's what Dan Fisher always says. Hey, I like about you, because he's like, you're very diligent with your responses, and you're very thoughtful before you speak. And but being exposed to those and listening to those conversations, being in those rooms, being at those dinners, being at the table, talking about different things, breaking up into smaller groups. It's just really been a very, very impactful, I guess, journey being on that board over the last few years.
Hey everyone, it's Pete Chow here from the RTO Show podcast, and I want to tell you about a company that's making a real difference in the rent-to-own space. Wow Brands. I've seen firsthand how they approach marketing. And let me tell you, it's not just about ads. Wow Brands builds complete digital ecosystems designed specifically for the rent-to-own industry. Their e-commerce and lead generation strategies are built to bring in qualified leads. And did I mention that they are actively working with the rent-to-own industry while also being members of APRO and TRIB? Listen, these folks are passionate problem solvers. They don't just slap something together. They design, build, and scale the kind of digital retail tools your business needs and your customers actually want. So if you're serious about growing, reach out to Wow Brands at wowbrands.com. I trust them, and I think you will too.
Just for my career, I feel like it's kind of turned my career a little bit from a mindset of how I think. I think a little bigger now than I did before by being exposed to people that are operating bigger than my mindset.
Let me ask you a question. You're on the board. You're starting to see all these different people. Give me one thing that you have learned from the board that you didn't learn from anywhere else that was impactful in how you do business and who you are as Jerry Marshall.
That's a tough question, Pete. Man,
I know. That's what I was thinking. That's going to be awesome. We're going to get them. No, seriously, because I mean, you say a lot of great things about a lot of great people, but you're one of them, and you always play that down, and it's okay. I totally understand, but what have they done? Because I know what you add to the board. I know if I asked somebody, they'd be like, Jerry, like you said, Jerry's a methodical guy. He's not gonna shoot to an answer. He's gonna think about what's going on. He's gonna see how it affects him, how it affects everybody else, and he's gonna give you an answer that really has meaning. So if they get that from you, what do you get from them?
So, I mean, I guess understanding the industry as a whole, like, didn't really know a lot about the history of the industry. So when you're, not many of us, I'm sure not many people, I would venture to guess, haven't read through the whole history of the industry, which is the great thing about Charles's book. He kind of capsulizes all of that and brings it together. But just understanding like some of the fights and some of the battles, just for us to be able to operate today. And then, being a part of like with Trent and Mark, probably mainly those two guys and Ed Wynn before he left, and just understanding some of those trials and tribulations that this industry has had to go through. And most of us today haven't had to fight through some of the, New York aside, haven't had to fight through those battles just to be able to operate. Because I know what we do and I value what we do for the customer. And I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent with your question, Pete, but I mean, I would say that's probably the biggest thing I've gotten out of it. Just looking at the bigger picture of our industry and not just from a rent and collections so that's probably the most important, most impactful thing that I've gotten from being on this board from those other guys, is just really getting into the weeds and the details and understanding what our industry has been through to survive. I mean,
I tell you what, Jerry, I've heard you loud and clear. There is going to be an audio version of this book coming out. We actually just sealed that deal with Charles so that you won't have to read it, Jerry. You'll be able to listen to it. And, it is a hard read, but I'm going to try my best to get through it so that come out pretty soon in a couple of months, you'll be able to drive on your way to work and listen to the history of the RTO revolution and find out what that's like. That was part of, it was a great part of the podcast to be able to part of that book and do some research for Charles and Ryan. They did an amazing job. Wow Brands and APRO being a huge part of the show. I am so glad that I get to be a part of that and what they're doing. So the audiobook coming in a couple months, I will say that it will change how difficult it is to read that book to just being able to listen to it as you're giving those leadership values to your guys. But The reason I love this business, and I try to kind of articulate a little bit on the DC level when we were there. There's not many times that you have people who have had 40, 50 years of experience that can literally be alongside and do the same things as somebody who's been here for a year, somebody who's been here for 2 years and has no idea. Listen, guys, this is RTO is like an onion, and you can pull it back from learning how to deliver the right way and then going into account management and going into sales. Those are very different spheres of life when it comes to they're just so different, except, sales and collections are usually like brothers and sisters. But, the management part, as you get into the managing and you're managing one store and then learning how to manage several stores. And, there have been times back probably a couple years ago when I was working with buddies, I went back to a store that I had ran as a GM many, many moons ago. And one of the customers came in and they were like, Pete? And I'm like, oh my God, somebody remembers. Now I feel terrible because I didn't remember their name in return. It was so long. I was like, oh, but the face, you never forget a face, right? So, we sat there and talked for 15 minutes. Those are the relationships that you build. Now, if I treated transactional and they walked in, I gave them something and they walked out, they probably wouldn't remember who I was. But we were talking about kids. We were talking about grandkids. We were talking about, hey, man, how's that fridge doing? He's like, man, that thing died like 2 years ago. I got another one from over here. He sold it to me. Max sold it to me. And it was like, that's awesome. But, those relationships, whether it be from a multi-unit to a single unit to the customer to having 45 years of experience all the way down to 6 months, this is a very relational business. This is something that, we pass things down, whether it be knowledge, understanding, business, history, whatever. And the board plays a huge part in that. And that's why I'm glad that you're on the board, Jerry, because you add your little slice of heaven to that. You add your paradigm, your perspective to it. And I love that part. I gotta say that being available to meet you guys and to ride around in DC was probably one of my most favorite times in DC because, when do you get time to just be passionate and talk about business without having a timer on, right? So we get to Philomenians. We're all sitting there. Listen, if you've ever been to Philomenians, it's about 3 sizes smaller than a shoebox. And we go in there and it is packed. They've been there for years and years and years. And it is probably some of the best food I've ever eaten. And we're all sitting around this very small table trying out a whole bunch of food and just talking about the business and talking about each other. And guys, if you haven't done that, you got to do it because having passion in the business is also about getting to know the person next to you and getting to find out where you've been and where you're going. How do you affect the business? So, I love that part about what you do and how you do it. So give me a little perspective. Where are we headed now in rent to own? What does it look like 5 years from now? Where is RTO headed in your mindset, in your perspective and paradigm? Where is RTO headed in the next 5 years?
Pete, that's probably the big question. I'm very optimistic. I'm always like people were pessimistic during COVID. I'm always going to be optimistic about it. I think there's a place for us, just because of a lot of what we talked about, relationship, what we do, how we take care of people, how we care about people. I think there's still going to be a place for us, but I think there's going to have to be some consistent evolution, right? With your mindset and how you think. You got to think outside the box. It's kind of like I was talking earlier, like we got to have people that are coachable, from a business owner perspective, from a business model perspective. You have to be coachable, right? And be open-minded to change. Right. So that's one of the things I preach that, if we're not open-minded, if we're not willing to evolve because of, hey, this costs money or, hey, this is going to take too long. If you keep waiting for it to be too long, then too long you're not going to exist. But I think there's a place for us because it's all about the people. As long as you're willing to teach, train, and mold the right people, inspire people so that we can keep this thing going, that's going to be the biggest thing because it's about what we do. It doesn't matter what the name of your business is. I mean, look at some of the names of some of these independents that are really successful. I mean, does that name even resonate anywhere else other than in their markets? And more times not, it resonates because of whoever's running that store, right? So that's what matters. I think as long as we're willing to adjust and adapt to customer behaviors and still find ways to cater to what their needs are, then I still see us thriving. Now it's some of us are probably gonna, fade away or phase out. I do feel like that. We're already seeing some condensing of some of the markets, but I think that's just because of the inability to adapt and change to what's necessary to serve our customers.
But I can tell you right now, I do see that. I see a condensation. I see a condensing of stores. I think what we're going to see in the next 5 years is you're going to see, a third less stores covering a third more area. So if you have two stores that are close together, I see them joining. Even up to 5 miles, I see them joining. And so you have one more consolidated area, but the trucks are going to cover more area than they have before. I see that happening only because there's a lot more things going on online. There's a lot more availability. And as we approach those scenarios where you can be more online, you can be more perspective as far as AI being involved, you might need less as far as a footprint, more of a part of an area that you cover. And I think I see a condensing down because I think we've expanded quite a bit, and I see us coming down a little bit, maybe having more employees in one store than two. Instead of having 5 and 5, maybe you get one store with 8, but you're covering a little bit more area. So that's what I see and what I think. I do want your perspective going to the last leg of this. How do you feel about the virtual rent-to-own companies? They're starting to, they're growing. The percentages are staggering. The dollar amounts are growing year after year after year. It used to kind of be the way we were when we first started. The year after year, we saw some growth. Well, that's happening in the virtual rent-to-own space. You're seeing a lot of different players. Acima through Rent-A-Center is doing well. Rent-A-Center's had its bumps and bruises, but Acima's doing well, right? You got Good Progressive Company that's doing the same thing. You've got a couple other ones, you got like Qualify and all those guys, Snap and stuff. But where do you see that being in 5 years as in comparison to where we are now?
I mean, I think ultimately, as I say, us evolving, I think we're going to need some blend of some virtuality in our stores in order to continue. And, where you have, as you said, you stated, we're willing to go. I remember back in the days, like, hey, I'm not going over 20 miles from my store, and then it got to 30 and now it's like to 45. I'll go anywhere. Give me a credit card on file. And I'll go anywhere. But so I think the positive of those guys, though, I think they're bringing customers into the education of rent to own, right, and understand the transaction. Whereas, some people don't even realize that, hey, we do the same thing in the brick and mortar, because there's still a stigma there of what we do, right? You really have to like my friends, they'll make me so angry, or if I come across somebody and they say something bad about what we do or our prices or something like that, they're going to get a full tutorial from me right away. If you want to light a fire to me, then say something bad about what I do.
I love that.
But I feel like, part of what they are doing is educating more customers of the transaction. That's one positive we can look at it. But I think eventually when you say the 5-year mark, I think we're going to have to evolve and have some blend of virtual,
some hybrid versions. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask you 3 quick questions. Not that I'm trying to put you on the spot, just want to see what's going on before we close it down today. First one is one word to describe the RTO industry.
Outstanding.
You see how you did it again. He thought about it. He went, hold on, let me think about it.
Very
I
thoughtful.
love that.
I was gonna say passion, but I didn't want to keep overusing that word.
No, it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. Second question: book, podcast, or person that's influenced how you lead.
I'm gonna go. There's a guy. Some people like.
He's gonna say
like
Michael
him.
Bennett.
I'm not.
Say Michael Bennett.
I'm gonna say the name before Michael Bennett. But there's a guy named John Chakowski. He was my divisional vice president when I was a regional at Rentway, and he promoted me, number one. And number two, he stuck with me. He taught me, he invested in me. And I know you only asked for a 1-word answer, but I feel like I need to explain that one. He invested in me. And that's why, after the first year being a regional man, it's tough when you go from where you can control everything in one box and then you try to spread it amongst 8 boxes and, it's not there. It takes time. And he understood that. And he explained to me, it's like, you got to stop puddle jumping. Don't feel like you got to touch every store every week. And, different little things like that got me to understand, make your visits, count. But, I'd say John Chakowski is probably the most impactful in my life as far as, because I spent 20 more years in this business than I have doing anything else.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Michael, we still love you, but John beat you out on that one. We love it. Listen, I totally understand. I really do, because it's not easy. One of the hardest changes that I ever made was going from single store to multi-unit. That was unbelievably difficult. And for all the reasons that you mentioned. Last question, best piece of advice that you've ever received. We're going to stub them. We're trying to stub them today. We're getting them good.
Can I give you 2?
Sure.
Well, one was play with the bank's money and not yours.
That is very true, sir.
The other one is, Rome wasn't built overnight. So slow down, right? Slow down mentally and, build it the right way.
I can definitely see that, and there's a reason why the aqueduct is still standing. They built it the right way, because I've seen some of the things that we built today, not so good. Jerry Marshall, I'm so glad to have you on the show today. It's been amazing. Guys, I want to tell you, if you want us to keep content like this, you've got to be a sponsor. If you want to be a sponsor of this show, because we appreciate all of our sponsors, go to the website, www.thertoshowpodcast.com. If you have any questions, hit me up. You can hit me up on all the social medias, on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, where you're going to see this. You can go online and hit me up at pete@thertoshowpodcast.com. That's my email. And you guys will be able to deal with everything that we have going on, including making comments and saying, if you have anything to ask Jerry, we'll definitely direct it towards him. Jerry, been a great day. Listen, I know you got to go back to work. Unfortunately, you got so much going on, but thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. No, thank you for having me. I feel, privileged to be on the RTO show. I've always said, man, the RTO show, when I first saw it, I was jealous. Like, man, we always talked about that. Now somebody's beat us to the punch. And so I'm proud to call you a friend, man. You've really made an impact with this show on our business, and it's kind of like helped us share our love with each other and inspire each other. So good job. Keep up the good work, Pete.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate having you on the show, because you have been the guest. I do appreciate it so much. And I'm going to tell you guys, as always, get your collections low to get your sales high. Have a great one.